Okay.
Okay, we're good to go. Sorry about that, everyone. Just a nice little bit of technical drama because I've got a brand new computer, brand new OBS setup. I don't know how anything's working. So, okay. Awesome. Thank you for introducing yourself, Altiva. Let's just jump into it. So we're going to chat a bunch about comics first of all, and then we'll get into more specifics about the second safest mountain. So if any of you have questions throughout for Altiva about any of his work in general or about this comic in specific, there is a link on the screen, quintrypress.com/Altiva. Go submit a question and we'll get to it. I'd prefer not to have to look at chat while I'm chatting. So that's just a nice way for me to keep all the questions in one place. So, first question. Otto, what was your first experience with comics?
Okay. First experience with comics. Well, I'm from Finland and I'm from the 90s. So a particular thing about uh, Finnish childhood is that we are the most Donald Duck obsessed country in the world. Uh, every kid gets like this weekly Donald Duck comic from the mail. So everybody kind of grows up uh, reading comics and specifically like reading the Donald Duck comics here. So that's kind of like the first touch. Um, and growing up, getting like the very usual uh, Euro comics like Tintin, Asterix and Obelix. Very boring, regular answer. I guess after like hitting the preteens in the 2000s, me like everybody else in my generation, I discover um, like manga, the rare treat at that point. Our library, for some reason, had like all of Rumiko Takahashi's work, so reading those for the first time, getting my mind blown. And then, like in that tender age of like being a teenager, also finding like more, let's say, horny Euro comics of like Barbucci's, Skydoll, or like Loisel's Peter Pan works, or like you know the Black Sad comics, which all kind of like uh, contributed to this like I guess like European and Japanese influence, like general ground floor work for myself. And then of course going into like 2000s, later 2000s and 2010s, like the webcomic scene where I was also not quite on the ground floor, but like in like the 2010 releasing like a comic which my older followers will recognize, which was Judeka, which was like released from 2010 to 2014, I think. And yeah, kind of like I almost said cutting my legs. That is not the phrase. Uh,
Cutting your teeth?
getting my cutting my teeth. Yes.
Yeah.
On like the comics online comic scene at that time.
Mm. Yeah, I think Judeka
Yeah.
is actually where I was first introduced to your work. So I was reading that when it was coming out. So it's been really
Oh
interesting
God.
to see your journey moving from like Judeka, which was not
Yeah.
like overly detailed necessarily, but your work has been so condensed down into such simple line work since Judeka. It's been a really interesting trajectory to track.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um,
Yeah, Judek was like super naturalistic,
mm,
very like I don't know, like I wouldn't say that it had no vision, but it was kind of like all the visions at the same time. So it was
yeah.
kind of yeah.
It's like baby's first comic is often so like I've got to
Oh
put everything in there. It's going to be everything
yes,
all at once. Yeah, for sure.
yes, the magnum opus, exactly.
So, did you always want to become a comic artist with such like a strong comic background, or was it something that you just kind of ended up doing?
I mean, yeah, I mean the answer is so boring for me. It literally is just like I was like 13 or 14, and I was like in the school instead of like focusing in class, I would be drawing comics, and I was just like, I want to do comics when I grow up, and then I did. Then I am doing comics when I grew up. So very like point A, point B, and I don't think I had like it was very late into my like growth as a comic artist that I like even started like being more like consciously asking like why the fuck am I doing this? What is this career path? Why do I want to do this? What is in it for me other than just like following the like desire to do it? So yes,
I mean, that's an interesting answer because it's so straightforward. Because so many
yeah,
comic people come from different backgrounds. So just to have someone who's
mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I wanted to do it,
Yeah,
they
for
did it.
sure.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
What is it about comics that makes you want to work in them? What is it that draws you to this medium?
Well, I mean, first of all, like it is maybe one of the most like accessible mediums. Like
Mm.
both as like the reader and the like author. Like when you are making comics, you can like you can technically do them. Like you can literally do them on your own. You can just as long as you have like a vision, like you don't even technically need the technical skill for it. You just kind of have to have like a point of view and just go ahead with it. Like it
Mm.
is so accessible as a medium, and also as like a reader, it has always been like relatively a very cheap medium to like read, especially now with like online comics. Like I mean, we both do like online oriented comics, and
Mm.
like it's like important to kind of like keep it like as like accessible as possible to people to be able to read it, and
Mm.
like that is like a huge part of comics for me, and just like the being able to do every part of the process or like to get to have your hand in every part of the process like
Mm.
feels very like important to me, and like comics are exactly that. Like you wear like 15 hats at the same time all the time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely,
So that
absolutely. I think
yeah.
coming specifically from a webcomic background, the accessibility is often something that so many people cite as a reason that they get
Mhm.
into comics. Um,
Yeah.
and it's not really something that you would be able to answer, but I always wonder what that answer is for people who didn't start in webcomics. Because basically everyone I know who does
Yeah.
comics, almost all of my like comic colleagues or people I work with started in online comics. So
Yeah.
it's such a different, I think, perspective on art to be making it specifically because you can make it and share it so easily. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I also like almost all my colleagues are also like from the online sphere, and like I feel quite like almost like distance from people who work in like for example like the big two who are like part of like this more of a pipeline of
mm,
making comics, and like employed by like normal people to do it, and like kind of do like a certain like intersection of the comics, and might not necessarily have many or any publications that are like not behind the paywall, and I do often like quite wonder like would I enjoy that kind of work? What would the pros and cons of that be?
mm,
I don't know because I don't come from that background. I really do come from like because I like from this starting as like I guess more or less as a hobby, but
mm.
then kind of like finding this or like we're constantly like building this like I don't know a professional point of view within that in the online sphere.
Yeah, I mean, so it's something because when I started doing comics, I was doing my own personal web comic and I loved it. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this professionally. I want to draw, I want to be hired to draw comics. And then I
Yeah,
did like two or three comic jobs and I was like, I'm not doing this ever again. I
yeah,
hate
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
Would you ever
for sure.
consider working with a writer or doing like paid comic work? Are you solely interested in your own stories?
Like I've done a few like really minor jobs, but like I feel like I just really want to do my own things. I
Mm.
I know that sounds kind of like no, actually I'm just like I'm not gonna say that it sounds like selfish or anything because I think it's like if you have a vision then that's
Yeah.
cool like to do your thing obviously, but like I think at some point I would like to like explore it a little bit more in
Mm.
some like context that like I don't know is personally like interesting to me, but like yeah I to me like the writing component is like so like at the center of what I want to do
Mm.
that like taking that off from it like I don't mind doing it if the paycheck is good enough to like do like the visual component, and obviously like there's a lot of storytelling in the visual component of comics, but like it has to be it has to be something worth doing it for to kind of abandon doing like my own shit
For sure.
instead, because it's
Yeah.
like we don't get paid in this. We don't get paid anything in this genre anyway, so might as well do your own thing while you're
Yeah.
not getting. It's
Absolutely.
like,
And I think
yeah,
there's only so much, like physically we only have so much comic in us because it's such a physically
yeah,
demanding
for sure.
medium. So
Yeah,
I totally
exactly.
respect that and I agree. I'm just like I'm if you why bother working on someone else's stuff when you have something a story that
Yeah,
you want to tell?
yeah, exactly.
So when you start a new comic or you start a new project, what excites you most about that new project? Where do you start? Is there like a theme or a plot or a character that you tend to be drawn towards? Or is it all kind of come together at the same time?
Um, I'm just realizing my webcam is so laggy. I apologize
It's
to
okay. It's a chill
everybody
stream,
else.
guys. Sorry if the quality is bad. Whatever. We're comic artists. We're not streamers.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. The question, what excites me the most?
Mhm,
I mean, it kind of depends. Like, I would say, like, I'm split like kind of half and half. Sometimes I like get huge brain worms about like a specific kind of characters. Like,
mhm,
obviously, we come from like the webcomic roots, so we kind of have this. I don't know, this blurball brain of like, I have this, I have this little creature in my brain, and I have to torture them on the page. That's kind of like half of it, and then there's like the other half of like, which I guess like the last few comics I've made have been maybe more like going theme first, or like having like this. Okay, this is coming to me now, and I have to kind of make a comic out of it.
mhm,
And usually, um, I don't know if they make different kinds of comics because I think I do end up doing kind of similar themes in the end in everything I do,
mhm,
but it's just like at the like on the back end, it kind of like starts from a different um, direction.
mhm,
But usually, like I have a lot of like ideas going on at the same time, and usually like most of them I end up discarding, but like usually there comes a point where I kind of like um figure out the plot. I guess that's what you said. Like the plot comes to me as a like a complete thing, and then I'm like, okay, this is going to move on to like the maybe this will be a comic. Let's see if I can make
mhm.
this into a comic page.
So
And usually,
when
yeah.
you're coming up with your stories and you've got your plot, do you then derive the characters, like who a character who would fit into that plot, or are you thinking of your plot for specific characters?
Um, I mean, I think it depends on like which approach I am going with. Like if I
Mm,
have like I want to do this sort of characters, or I have a specific character in mind. I'm kind of like trying to phase out of that approach a little bit because like I feel like sometimes if I really try and brute force like a specific character into a story, it sometimes ends up maybe not making the strongest story
mm.
possible. Although sometimes it's just like you want to do what you want to do anyway. It's fine. That is nobody's grading you, or I guess they are, but it's in Goodreads, so it doesn't matter. But if it's like a theme first, then usually I figure out like the skeleton of the thing, and then like kind of see like okay, what do I want to like have in this soup as the ingredients?
Mhm. Yeah, that makes complete sense. I've just noticed that there's a little. Oh no, it's all good. Sorry, thought I had a minor stream hiccup. All good.
Yeah, I
um,
my webcam is 100% hiccuping. I am just complete one frame per 5 seconds, but
yeah, yeah, it's fine. People will survive, I'm sure.
yeah.
Um, so last question about your work generally before we move on to Second Safest Mountain. How has transitioning informed your work? Because I think there's been a very like I don't want to like define the Second Safest Mountain as having transgender
Mm-hmm.
specific themes. It does have
No,
themes of
no, yeah.
gender, and then also your wizard comic uh, has like an element of that as well. So how has transitioning
Mm.
affected the tone or the themes or the characters or the plots that you work with now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, first of all, like on a very literal sense, there's like an infuriating amount of like transmasculine or like gender non-conforming like butch characters in my works now, which is I guess it's there to stay. We'll see. But like also in like more uh I don't want to what's like a psychological sense, I guess. Like um I mean, transitioning kind of like forces at least me to be like more honest with myself and like
Mhm.
kind of also like tolerate myself better. And I think that's always like a process that um I don't know. It's just like results in like better voice in your own work and kind of like better like clarity in like you know what you're what you're making your things about. And
Mhm.
like I think that like I mean part of it is also like growing older. Like you get better at like storytelling as you get older, so it's kind of like hard to separate those two.
For
But
sure.
I think it is also like a it has definitely like changed uh like how I approach
Mhm.
everything, stories included.
Yeah, I think for myself as well, when I started transitioning, I was able to recognize the themes that were already prevalent in my older work and just kind of
Mhm.
like make them more apparent in future work, if that makes sense. So, like any sort
Yeah,
of
yeah,
gender related themes in my old work that I didn't realize were there. I'm
yes,
like,
yes,
oh, now I can do it on purpose and
yeah,
well, better.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's like it's an interesting like. I mean, it's not a trans exclusive thing, obviously, but it does like gender or like coming to your gender is like a very good like a literal example of it. Of like you can often like look back at your own work and you
Mhm.
kind of like see what you were processing back at the time, and you weren't like quite there yet, but like obviously it's there,
Yeah.
and yeah, that is very relatable.
Hmm. It's a really interesting part of people's work, I think, is to track
Mm.
their mental state almost through their work.
Yes, yes, for sure.
Um,
I have to ask, like, if my video is so laggy, would it be less distracting for the audience if I just turn it off and become a little icon?
yeah, I mean, if people would prefer that,
Voice out your opinions.
voice it, and we'll find out in like 5 minutes when the stream catches up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
um, Cool. Well, let's move on to the second safest mountain. So this is your gorgeous book, which was originally released as a digital comic. So unlike the other Quindry comics, this isn't one that you worked on with us. I came to you later to print it. So can you just give us a rundown of what the second safest mountain is about, please?
Okay, so the second safest mountain is about Holy Mountain, where sacred women live, and it's a story about when one of the women decide to leave the mountain and the repercussions of what happens after that.
Hmm. It is so good. And
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
do the marketing thing. It's right
Yeah,
here. It's also okay, well it's gone now, but it's
yeah,
right here. um yeah, it's such a gorgeous comic, and I'm really glad that in the end we ended up going like a nice big paperback for this. It
yeah, for sure.
feels very like French or Belgian, like the BD comics, like the nice big books. It's
Oh,
not quite
definitely,
as big
yeah.
as that, but it's so nice. So when you were first starting to work on Second Safest Mountain, what was your starting point for the concept?
Uh, for the concept, to begin with, I mean, like it started from when I started to work on it. I had just finished like the book three of Letters from Ricardo, and also the first chapter of the Time Will Devour His Children, which is my
Yes.
um solo project
Mhm.
that I do whenever I have the time for it. And both of those comics were like, especially like book three of Letters from Ricardo, which I'm doing for Iron Circus Comics. They were like very challenging books to make, like
Mhm.
both in like kind of uh like the technical side of it, and also like well, not on the deadline side. That was mostly like the Letters from Ricardo. Time Will Tower does not have a deadline to it, but I had like kind of like I found myself very tired of both of those projects,
Mhm.
and I wanted to do something that is uh I don't know if simple is the right word, but like something that is like very just kind of gym logic, simple technical style,
Mm,
and just kind of like something for myself. Something for myself. Like
mm,
just make what is on my brain right then, and see what comes out. And one thing that like influenced me especially was I had recently read Detransition Baby by Tori Peters,
mm,
which is one of my favorite pieces of fiction. And in that book, it has nothing to do with this comic, but in that book there is like this thorough line of like uh, forced feminization as kind of um, like theme to explore your like trans femininity and like also femininity.
mm,
Uh, and while I was reading it, I was kind of like having this thought of like, if culturally when the concept of like forced masculinization existed, I probably would have like figured my shit out much faster.
mm.
And it kind of like stayed in my brain. And like somewhat later, I kind of like, I mean, this is now, I was like kind of just like having this like visual idea of like, wouldn't it be fucked up if there was like this like cult of like girls, and there's this scene at night where like one of them is being like like forcibly or like through some hijinks has been like is being perceived as like masculine, and then this like another like a girl approaches them, and like there's like this sexual tension between them, and I was like, okay, I am going to I'm going to build a comic around this concept, and it kind of like came very like organically from that.
Mm,
And I think while I was like, well, when I'm working from like this binary of like womanhood, then like eventually like this father's member kind of like came as like this part of my fun as this like the binary opposite to it,
mm.
to you know uh work on the subject, and yeah, I lost my trail of thought there a little bit, but
No, it's okay. It's so
it's-
you had like a core scene almost, and you just kind of
yeah,
like branched out from there.
yeah.
How did the story change over the course of working on it? Because I know I've got some concept art here. I'm going to do a slick transition. Whoa. Now the concept art
Whoa,
is on the screen. um,
Colin.
so, could you talk to us a little bit about what stage you were at when you did the concept sketches and how things changed over the course of making the story?
Yeah, I think actually with this one, the concept sketches. I mean, you can see that they look pretty close to the final
Mm,
one. I think this one was like the moment I was like putting it down on the canvas, I was like, okay, this is the direction I'm gonna go with this. No notes. It was just kind of very like I feel like I have comics that are either like pulling teeth, very difficult to kind of get to the final form, and then I have comics that are kind of like just slide out. And this was one of those like
mm,
doing the concept sketches. I mean, obviously the final designs, especially like the father, changed
mm.
quite a lot, but kind of the spirit is pretty much the same still
Yeah,
within it.
I love this. I'm actually going to make it bigger. The the initial design for the father here, when you sent this to me, I that's just I didn't know what didn't know what to make of this one. It was really fun.
Yeah.
It was really interesting to see how like those elements changed from concept to finish. And then I really love the moving to this one. I really love these initial sketches. It's always so fun to see concept sketches for work when you know what the final looks like, because it's like you can see the core even though things change. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I see the seed of what was
Yes,
happening
yes.
there. It's really
Yeah.
cool. What
Yeah.
were the so you mentioned Detransition Baby. Were there any other sources of inspiration for either the look or the like the design of the worlds in general?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to do a little list for myself, because every time you're like, name five things, and your brain is like,
I know, yeah, I'm sorry.
so, yeah, no. But I think like one like one like visual like initial thought in my brain was like I'm always been like very obsessed with like this Dutch Vanitas paintings where like you have like this black backgrounds and then like this opulence kind of like blooms out of
Mm,
the background, and I was kind of like obviously the visual style is very simple, but I was kind of like chasing that similar like having this like complete darkness where the opulent details raise out of. So that was kind of like a visual seed there initially. Uh, what else has inspired this? I guess like the this like well, I've been recently like very inspired by like other artists who have like this kind of like very organic, beautiful line work, and then like a very flat, simple color like
mm,
comps behind it. Like I really like that as a style. I try and like explore it also. Uh, People like Lucia Durbiano. I said that really badly. Not a comic artist, but like Isao Takahata's movies, like especially Tale of Princess Kaguya, which has like these very beautiful soft line work, and
mm,
I guess it's more of like a watercolor style in general. But they have like these characters who have like this very simple, like almost like gormless expressions all the time, and I really resonate with that. And I kind of like was was seeking that in this also. I do like that kind of um, I wouldn't say blankness, but like this kind of simpleness that kind of invites you to put yourself into like the character. I guess it's like the how to refer comics genius, like the Scott McCloud thing of like the more simple the character is, the more you can kind of like just put yourself into it. And I think
mm.
especially in like I don't know in a topic like a topic that has like a lot of I don't know baggage to it, or like stuff like I don't know transitioning or like rejection or whatever, or like I don't know, making people read a story about forced masculinization, which this isn't. I guess it's not really forced in this case, but I guess there's like some elements to it. But like it
Mm.
helps to kind of like I like giving it like this level of simplicity for the characters because then you can kind of like you know you can invite yourself into it better. And I do like that very much
That's
with
yeah,
direction.
I love that concept of like the heavier or the more intricate the themes in the story, the simpler the art.
Yeah,
That's such a I love that dichotomy. And I think
yeah,
something that really stands out about your work is the economy of line is just so confident, so
mhm.
like it's
Oh,
such simple work. I'm gonna go back to
thank you.
the pages. Um, so when these cycle through, like just the for people who don't know like what it's like to be an artist or they're not really into drawing, just look at how few lines there are on this artwork, and
Oh,
it's
phew.
so impressive. It actually the skill it takes to draw fewer lines is way higher than people think it is. Really really
Oh, thank
impressive.
you,
So okay,
thank
I've
you.
got a really long question now.
Hell yeah, yes.
So um like I mentioned earlier, you didn't work with Quincy Press from start to finish on this one. So when I first read it, it was just because I bought it and I was reading it for the first time, and I was immediately obsessed with so many elements of it, and I genuinely wrote an essay that I sent to my friends to like explain my argument. Um, so there's like it's the visual motifs. There's two visual motifs that I thought were really interesting, and I'm going to explain them for the listeners, and then I'm going to ask a question about it. So I'm really sorry I'm going to talk a lot. So there's the
Hell yeah, go ahead.
motifs of hands being covered, and then there's the visual motif of like the blue and the red, which is used throughout the comic. So hand wise, wherever characters are deviating from the norm in some way, their hands tend to be uncovered. So, for example, uh, so I've lost my point in my little paragraph here. So yeah, hands uncovered is sort of deviation from the norm, and covered hands symbolizes adherement to the norms. So when Aru is punished with the whip at one point, the woman who's punishing them has their hands covered, or has her hands covered. But then later, when one of the women approaches Aru to sleep with them, her hands are uncovered because she's deviating from the norm. And all the people who live below, their hands are uncovered, obviously, because they're working on the ground. Um, and one of the people who lives below mentions that Ari's hands are all soft because they've been covered for their whole life or while ever they've been working and living up on the mountain. And then the color, there's obviously the red of the father, which is contrasted with the blue of the people who live below, uh,
Yeah.
which is, a very obvious difference. But then, interestingly, the women who live on the
Hmm.
mountain also have blue on their outfits. So there's the blue of the habit, and there's the blue of the sleeves, which to me, going back to my theory of like the hands being covered, um,
Hmm.
that's to me symbolizes almost that despite the women trying to adhere to the societal norms, either um, deviation or gender non-conforming or whatever element that you want to read the theme as is already part of their society, and try as they might, maybe they themselves are already uh, likely to deviate in some way. So I those are my two like nuggets I really loved to chew on when I first read this comic. How much of that did you design intentionally, and are there any other sort of visual themes that you put throughout the comic?
I love this whole color. This is like so my shade. I really like all of this. Like I'm very happy that it's like inviting you or like anybody reading it to kind of like have these thoughts. And I think like I mean, I don't really want to be the author who's like, yes, this is confirmed, and this is the other lore here is this confirmed. So that's kind of like boring to me. So I don't want to be like,
Mhm.
yes, here's this and this. But like, I really like do feel that this is very like, I'm really happy that the comic is uh giving this thoughts,
Mm,
and I think to the color things, like the only thing that comes to mind to add is that like like you said, the people below are blue, but also like the earth everywhere, including on the mountain, is also in these blue tones,
mm,
and the father's colors are like this red. And I wanted to have this like sense of like that ultimately the red is like the artificial color there, and there's like nothing wrong objectively with like artificiality, but it just means that it's something that can be changed by us. So that's kind of like the what I wanted to do with that color there. These are all super awesome thoughts. I will say I did not think of the color of the sleeves. That is that was a reader's addition to it. But I really love that.
mm,
It's a really nice thought, and I do like to me. It's also like when I was making this comic, it was very important to me that like I don't like demonize the girls on the mountain. Like
mm,
obviously there's a lot of like adjacent like thoughts that I'm thinking about on the mountain. But also like I don't want to make a story that is just like 100% like fuck them.
mm,
There's no hope to them. Just go die. That's like not what I want to make.
mm,
So I want them to like Una as a character is very important to have there because
mm,
otherwise it would be very like uh, cancel women unless they transition. Like that would be really like a fucked up thing to
mm,
go towards. But I wanted to like that there's hope for everybody,
mm.
and I think the idea of the sleeves colors being an echo of that is like really sweet, and I really like that. And yeah,
I
awesome
think
question.
it's
I love it.
yeah, no, thank you. I think it's pretty clear that the other women on the mountain are kind of going through their own shit.
Yeah,
Like there's the woman who sleeps with Aru.
yeah,
Obviously that's probably not part of what they would consider normal in the society, and then we've got Une
mm,
as well. So I think
yeah,
as a piece that's sort of criticizing uh, or exploring the, the strict societal rules of femininity, I think
mm,
really it does show that those rules restrict and harm the people who adhere to the rules as much as it does the people who are like who don't conform or who deviate. And it's also really
yeah.
interesting that you said that the blue was the like the artificial color, and sorry, the red is the artificial
Yeah,
color,
yeah,
and blue is like the color of the mountain, which is more nature, because
mm,
like the blue also sort of has a link with death and like loss. So it's
mm.
really interesting. I love to think about it. I love themes. I love thinking about this kind of stuff, even if it's not on purpose, you know, because
mm, mm.
you know, once a work leaves your hands and someone else reads it, it's up to that person to interpret it however they want. I actually had
Oh
a
yeah.
comic that I did a talk on a little while ago where someone said something similar, where they mentioned a color choice that I made, and they had a
Mm.
whole theory about it. And they were like, and they said that that was so smart of me, and I was like, yes, yes,
Yes, yes.
totally meant to do that.
Oh yeah.
um, yeah, no, I love that.
Mm.
I'm going to, before we sort of wrap up and move on to some closing questions, let's see if we have some reader questions. So, like I mentioned, if you have any questions that you'd like Ottawa to answer, just go to the website, what's over there, and fill that out, just so I have them all in one nice place. So, first of all, sorry, I'm so professional. So,
Sorry.
Nico asks, was there anything about putting this story together that surprised you, or was it pretty simple once you had the idea?
Hmm. I mean, I guess it was. I already touched on it a little bit, but I think once I like started, like once I had the outline, and once I was kind of like on the stage of like being more critical about it, I think I did have like a stage where I was like very. I don't want to say worried, but like there was a definitely a stage of like, am I making a story that's like very kind of like criticizing a thing that I don't really, have the ground to criticize. I don't want to do, like
Mm,
I said, I don't want to do like a story that's like ragging on women in general as a story. I guess that was like um the thing that I was like thinking about the longest. Um also like just the how to symbolize the father,
mm,
if it needs to be there, in what shapes does it need to be there? Kind of like 'cause at the same time I want, because I don't really object to the idea of doing like a taboo topic that is also titillating on some sense at the same time. Like I
mm,
think that's fine, and I think there's you can like obviously you can see that in this comic that there's like I'm doing like scenes that have like dark shades, but they're also kind of like sexy at the same time,
mm,
and like I think I don't know I like doing that shit in my work, and I think it's fine. You just kind of have to kind of be on the ball about it and like kind of think what are you doing when you're
mm,
doing it. So I guess that those are like the elements that I was like kind of having, pauses on and thinking like, well, what am I doing here? What do I want to do here? Um, but I think overall, like this was a story that kind of like just it became an outline, and then that outline got finished as a comic, and then it's just like, ta-da.
yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Actually, something related I forgot to ask earlier. Because you mentioned like being a little bit worried about this comic. You said you were making it basically for yourself after working on like a longer personal project, and then also your projects with Iron Circus. Um,
Mm.
this is a comic that you just did for yourself without any publisher or editor input. How is it different working by yourself on something like that as opposed to working with a publisher and an editor?
I mean, the biggest thing is that it's just for you. Like, I do think, like, I like doing both things. They both have obviously huge pros and cons.
Mhm.
But I think, like we've talked about already, we both made webcomics. Like, we know what's up. It's like making something just for yourself. It just has like this level of like, this is for me.
Mm.
I don't fucking care what other people think about this. Maybe it will flop, and then I'll be very sad if it does. But like, it's just like you just have to do it for yourself, and like when you're self-publishing, that is kind of like the biggest thing. And obviously, like I don't know, like especially now when I got to publish this through you, which I like. This is like so awesome. I'm really happy about that, and like I feel like especially now, like in the online scene, it feels like it is quite a like a smart way to do things of like you make a thing and then you see if people like it
Mm.
and then you take it somewhere and see if they want to publish it like that like feels as a very like I don't know a creator first way of like a very humane
Mm.
way to work, and I do like it a lot. So I don't know, it has a lot of like benefits in that sense. It has a lot of drawbacks too.
Mm,
You're working on a thing, you don't know what the fuck's gonna happen with it. Maybe nothing will happen, you won't get any money out of it, it'll be a waste of time, so to speak.
yeah.
Those brain worms are very present also, but like I do recommend it. If you make comics, if you make comics, um, make something just as a self-published little thing.
Hmm. Yeah, 100% agree. Make something weird, make something for
Yes.
yourself, and
Oh yes, and the weirdness for
yeah.
sure. Like just getting to do whatever the fuck. That is
Hmm.
a huge benefit.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to be self-conscious about your work when you're starting out creating, but you hit
Yeah.
like an event horizon as a creator where you're just like, fuck it, I want to make
Yeah.
something really weird for me.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, for sure.
and then everyone else is like, thank you. We've been
Basically,
waiting.
yes, 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 for sure.
Um, let's see what else we have here. Mura asks, what was the juiciest part of the comic that you look forward to drawing? The golden goose to chase during the creative process, and what did you enjoy the least?
Uh, the juiciest part, obviously the one I already outlined. I wanted to do the bedroom scene. Also the beginning, like the ritual where the father arrives. Like I always like to do those horrible splash scenes, if you pardon my horrible way of putting it. Um, what I didn't like. I mean, every comic has so many points where you're like, God, make this stop. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, comic is like, let's say 60% is that, and then the 40% is like being in heaven. So, like, you make your peace with it. There's a lot of stages where you're so fucking bored with it,
Yeah.
but that's just making a comic.
Yeah, that's comics, baby.
That's
Um,
comics, baby.
did you draw it chronologically? You started with the beginning scene, you went through it, or did you start with your favorite scenes? Or
No, I always make chronologically. I am
you're so
the most.
strong.
I think it's just my brain is so simple. Like I cannot take complications in my work. Like I am such a like I work in a fucking Stone Age cave. I take a million years to take up new things, and it also shows up in like my like the work process, like including down to like I have to work chapter by chapter,
Mm.
fucking page by page because I don't even know what's wrong with my brain. It's just like how it works. But I always, every comic you see from me, they are always chronologically made, unless something terrible has happened to me.
No, I think that's the correct, unfortunately, the correct way to work. I can't. I really struggle. It's something I'm trying to get better at. Over the years, I'm like slowly, fixing my
Listen,
technique. But
listen. I don't know. I'm so envious of people who can like kind of like work in like order that they want to work. I think there's something so cool about that. It's just like I don't give a fuck. I will work on this the way I
no,
want to.
no, it's so dangerous because then you draw all the bits you're excited about, and then the only thing left is the shit in the crowd
Oh
scenes.
yes.
Like, no,
Oh no.
it's a terrible, terrible way to live. Um, that's a very, very that's the correct way to do work.
All
There's
methods
no
are
right
valid.
way to do
Yes,
comics,
exactly. Yes, yes.
but there is also a correct way, a healthy way. Um, Arrow S asks, how do you come up with the ideas for your comics in general? Is there a general
Oh
point
boy.
of inspiration that you draw from?
I think it's just like I don't know. It's just life, man. It's just you just kind of like you have to keep your like ears and eyes always open and
Mm,
kind of like take in everything because you never know what weird indirect thing will be kind of like planting a seed in you. Like
yeah.
and sometimes like really like disparate different things kind of like suddenly come together into like uh into what will end up being a complete comic. Like
Yeah.
there is no single thing. I cannot go like now I will go into my creative chambers and there will be my. Although I guess in like some sense like all of your life is like kind of you're building this catalog inside of you where
Mm,
you can like kind of pull from. But like to build that you have to just kind of like wander around aimlessly,
yeah.
read,
No,
read comics, read books, live life. Just have fucked up experiences and then be like, well, this will go into my comic now.
yeah.
That's just
It's all going into the big pot, and maybe soup will come out at the other end eventually. Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
All right. Well, so what are your upcoming projects? What are you working on just now? You've got a comic coming out in October for Shortbox Comic
Yes.
Fair.
Yes. So that is next week, isn't it? Hold on. What is
Oh God, it
time?
is. Yeah, it's next week.
Almost next week. Almost next week. Tomorrow is next week.
Sure.
So it's the it's Short Books Comics Fair. I have my next comic coming out during it. It's called Home by the Rotting Sea, and it's an I would say not the most cheerful comic I've ever made. It is a little bit heavy, but it is also, I hope, very uh touching and fun to read.
So I'm
A friend of
curious
mine.
on the scale here. If you're saying that By the Rotting Sea is not the most cheerful comic, where does Second Safest Mountain fit? Because I wouldn't call that a cheerful comic either.
I would say I would say they are kind of neck and neck.
Hmm.
I'm not sure yet. I need to kind of like hear what people say about it before I like do the final judgment. Because I don't get to decide which of my comics gives the most clinical depression to people. That's kind of like for them to decide. But like
Sure.
a friend of mine said that this is a type two fun kind of comic, which is so funny. I love that as a phrasing of it. Like it will probably not be very fun, but I hope it's an enjoyable read anyway. And that's on Shortbox Comics Fair, which is from 1st of October until the 31st, I think, is how many days there are in October.
Yeah, this is
Yes.
a digital comic fair, so for the entire month the comic will be available to read. I don't know the website off the top of my head, but
I don't either, which is very cringe of me. It's probably Shortbox something.
Shortbox Comic Fair, you can Google it.
Yes.
Other than that, are you working on anything else at the moment?
So I guess like right now I'm a little bit in between projects. I am like, well, this is very inside baseball. I'm applying for grants in Finland to see
Hmm.
if I will get grants to work on next year for like a super like work in progress idea of mine,
Hmm.
which we'll see if anything comes of it. And besides that, I am going to work on a adult comic, which will be this dark crime porn comedy. And it's called Multiple Malpractices, which I think if I type that into Google search too many times, I will probably be put on some sort of list. But I will do that next, and we'll see when it's coming out.
Amazing, awesome. I'm very excited for all of those because I just love to
Yeah.
read comics. So when people who I work with are like, "I've got a new one," I'm like, "Awesome! It's a
Yes.
treat
Yes.
for me."
Yeah.
Um, so if no one else has any questions, we did get a couple more questions sent in, but we kind of covered them with what we've already discussed. So
Okay.
this is your last chance. If you want to send in a question, I can hold off for just a moment. In the meantime, Ottawa, what is your wildest comic dream? So if money and time was not a problem, physical ability is not a problem, it doesn't matter how long it takes. What is your wildest comic dream that you'd like to work on?
I mean, comic dreams are so unwild, right? That they're just like, wow, I get to make a comic. But
Yeah,
like, I guess,
I get
like,
paid for something.
yeah. But like, I think if there was like, what I'd love to get to make is like, if I would get like 1 year of paid research time to do like a historical piece on some, doesn't matter
Mm,
what period. Or I guess it doesn't matter what period, but like, there are several I would be happy to work on. Like 1 year of like research the hell out of it.
mm.
You get paid a living wage per month, and then you get like 2 years to finish the most opulent, beautiful graphic novel you could ever imagine. That would be kind of like the pipeline dream for me. It is such a small dream, I guess.
No, that sounds amazing. That's
Yeah,
genuine.
that would
That
be.
sounds great. Because I know, so you've done Shattered Spear, which is like a historical, or I
Yeah,
guess prehistorical comic.
yeah.
Um, is it sort of that time era that you'd be going for, or something different?
I mean, maybe like I do. I always have this like thought of like I want to do another prehistoric comic
Mm,
for sure. But then at the same time, I'm like, this is such a because like I guess I have two wolves inside of me. One wants to make a prehistoric comic. The other one is like the more you read about it, the more you're like you cannot set anything in this era because you cannot know anything about this era. Like this is all so like speculative that it might as well be fantasy. But I guess that's like whatever. That's historical fiction.
yeah.
Like that's just the nature of it. But I feel like I've become more hesitant over years of like I feel kind of cringe about like like the decisions I made in the comic, I still love it, the comic very much, but I'm still like, wow, I sure made a lot of assertions there, and like, I guess it's kind of like made me a bit more like apprehensive of like kind of
Mm,
if I did do something for it, I would like. Am I good enough for that? I guess like that is the one setting or like framework where I think it would interest me to work with somebody who's like a professional in the field. Like if an archaeologist was like, look, here's a script for you, let's fucking do this, I would be like, yes, hell yeah, let's do this.
mm,
Like that sounds great to me. But like I would at the same time, whatever, people know that I'm not a professional, so I would like to do something prehistoric, and also like going onwards a little bit into like early human like ancient history. Like that is also like a period I would love to do, or
mm,
just any like history is so interesting.
mm. Yeah, I think like I really enjoyed Shattered Sphere, and
Thank you.
I would love to see more just because it's not a period I know anything about, so
Yeah.
I don't imagine it's something that if you did another one and there's like a fact that's wrong, I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, he didn't do any research. I'll just be like,
That's kind
okay.
of like worse because then it's like because nobody's there to fact check me, so it's just like, oh god, I just don't know what the fucked up here. But it's fine. It's just that's just part of the process, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah, like you say, it's almost like a fantasy because it's
Yeah,
just so outside of anything that people know
yeah,
about day to day.
yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting. It's been really fun.
Yes, thank
Um,
you.
where can people find you and your work online?
People can find me in my two social medias that I'm currently in, which is Twitter and Blue Sky, and I'm using the name Claystorks in both. Uh, Other than that, maybe the most reliable thing is I have a website called ottawaheikkilä.net without the umlaut, so I guess it's Ottawa Heikkilä. Nobody hears the difference except Finnish people. um, yeah, you can find all my details there. And yes, go
Yeah,
check it out or don't.
yeah, you're your own person.
Yeah,
Um,
you're welcome to do anything. Yes.
if the second safest mountain sounded interesting to you and you haven't read it yet, you can pick up this beautiful hardback book at
It is so beautiful
quindypress.com.
though.
It's so
Damn.
good. I don't think you've received your copies yet, have you? They're still in
No, they're in
transit.
the
Yeah.
customs.
They'll get
But
there
I have my
eventually.
listen. I have my real not proof copy,
The
so we
proof,
can
yeah.
both hold this up now.
Yeah, so
Hell yeah.
Altiva's copy
Yes.
is a little worse quality because we changed printer and this one's really, really nice.
Yes, yes.
Um,
I'm looking forward to seeing the
uh,
final product.
yeah, you can pick up the book in print and PDF at quindypress.com. You can also buy the PDF directly from Ottawa at, is it playstorks.itch.io or
I think
itch.io
so.
slash
Yes, I think
playstorks?
Playstorks. Yes,
It's
I think it's the former
playstorks
one. Yeah.
on itch. You will
Yes.
find it. Thank you guys so
Yes.
much for coming. Yeah, that's
Thank you.
basically all we're going to chat about. So have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, everyone, and we'll see you around. Goodbye.
Yes, thank you. Peace.